She doubted him, until his secret left her weak in the knees. Skeptical hearts, Maya Chen adjusted her microscope with practiced precision, the soft hum of the laboratory equipment a familiar comfort in her otherwise chaotic day. 3 years at the Westridge Botanical Research Center had earned her a reputation for meticulous work and uncompromising standards. Her research on plant communication networks had already changed how the scientific community understood forest ecosystems. At 32, she preferred the honest simplicity of plants to the complicated nature of people, especially charming newcomers with perfect smiles and unproven theories. "Good morning, Dr. Chen. Beautiful day for revolutionizing science, isn't it?" Maya suppressed a sigh at the sound of Elias Novak's voice. Since joining the research team 3 months ago, he had disrupted her carefully ordered world with his easy confidence and unconventional ideas. "Science isn't revolutionized in a day, Mr. Novak," she replied without looking up from her specimen. "It's built on years of methodical research and peer review." Elias leaned against her workbench, his presence impossible to ignore. "True, but sometimes a fresh perspective can accelerate progress. And please, I've asked you to call me Elias." Maya finally glanced up, momentarily caught off guard by the intensity in his hazel eyes. Something about him always made her feel slightly off balance, a sensation she didn't appreciate. "Your proposal about mycelial networks serving as communication channels for emotional states in plants is interesting," she conceded, "but wildly speculative without substantial evidence." "That's why I'm here," he replied, unfazed by her dismissal. "To find that evidence. And I was hoping to discuss combining my approach with your established frameworks." Maya studied him, tall with olive skin and dark curly hair that seemed perpetually tousled. His credentials were impressive enough to secure him a position at Westridge, but his theories bordered on scientific heresy. Still, something about his enthusiasm was infectious. "I have 20 minutes before my next culture check," she said finally. "Show me what you've got." Their discussion stretched well beyond 20 minutes as Elias laid out connections Maya hadn't considered. His ideas were unorthodox, but his reasoning was sound. When he spoke about plants, his entire demeanor changed, the casual charm replaced by genuine passion that stirred something unexpected within her. Later that evening, Maya found herself thinking about their conversation while watering the ferns in her apartment. Her colleague Zara had caught her leaving the lab with Elias and teased her mercilessly afterward. "He's clearly into you," Zara had insisted over lunch. "And don't pretend you haven't noticed how gorgeous he is." "I've noticed he lacks scientific rigor," Maya had replied, ignoring the warmth creeping up her neck. Now alone with her thoughts, Maya admitted to herself that Elias Novak was undeniably attractive. But attraction was a chemical reaction, predictable and manageable. What troubled her was the way his ideas had lingered in her mind, challenging assumptions she'd held firm for years. The next morning, Maya arrived early to find a small pot containing a rare Peruvian orchid on her desk with a note. "Proof that beauty and scientific value can coexist. Coffee to discuss cross-pollination of our research." Maya touched one delicate petal, her fingers trembling slightly. The gesture was thoughtful, professional even. The orchid was relevant to her research. Yet something about it felt intimate, as if he had somehow read her thoughts. She tucked the note into her lab coat pocket, telling herself she was merely being practical. Collaboration was essential in their field, after all, but as she carefully moved the orchid to her window ledge, Maya couldn't quiet the whisper of excitement that had taken root inside her, like a seedling finding its first light, whispers in the greenhouse. The research facility was eerily quiet at midnight, with only the soft hum of climate control systems and the occasional bubbling of hydroponic equipment breaking the silence. Maya hadn't planned to work this late, but her latest soil samples had shown anomalous readings that demanded immediate attention. Exhaustion tugged at her, but curiosity pulled stronger, a familiar battle in her life as a researcher. As she crossed the darkened central atrium toward the exit, a flicker of light caught her attention. It spilled from beneath the door of Greenhouse 3, the restricted section where the most sensitive experiments were housed. Security protocols dictated that no one should be there after hours without special clearance. Maya hesitated, then changed direction. As head researcher, she had a responsibility to investigate. The glass door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a scene that stopped her in her tracks. Elias stood amid a forest of glowing plants, their leaves emitting a faint blue luminescence that painted his concentrated face in otherworldly light. He moved among them with reverent grace, measuring, adjusting, documenting. So absorbed was he in his work that he didn't notice Maya's presence until she gasped involuntarily, "Maya." He straightened, surprise flashing across his features before softening into a smile. "I didn't expect anyone else to be here. What is this?" she asked, stepping closer to examine a luminescent fern whose fronds seemed to pulse gently. Bioluminescence isn't possible in these species without genetic modification, and I don't recall approving any such experiments. Instead of the defensive response she expected, Elias's face lit with excitement. "It's not genetic modification. It's communication enhancement." He gestured for her to come closer. "These plants are expressing their normal processes, just amplified. The luminescence is a side effect of their heightened communication network." Against her better judgment, Maya moved deeper into the glowing garden. "You've been doing this work secretly?" "Not secretly," he corrected, guiding her toward a central workstation. "Just quietly. The board approved it last month, but I wanted solid results before presenting it to the team. Before presenting it to you." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. "Why would my opinion matter more than the board's?" Elias met her gaze directly. "Because you're the only one who would truly understand what this means. Look." He handed her a tablet displaying complex data patterns. "These are emotional response markers, plants reacting not just to physical stimuli but to emotional energy from other organisms." Maya scanned the readings, her scientific skepticism wrestling with the evidence before her. "This shouldn't be possible." "And yet here it is." Elias gestured to the glowing plants. "They respond most strongly to authentic emotional states. Watch." He approached a trembling aspen sapling and placed his hand near, not touching, its leaves. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath, and as Maya watched in astonishment, the blue glow intensified, pulsing in rhythm with what she imagined must be his heartbeat. "Try it," he urged softly, stepping back. Maya hesitated, then moved forward, extending her hand toward the plant. Nothing happened. "You're holding back," Elias said, his voice gentle. They sensed that. Something in his tone, the absence of judgment, the pure scientific curiosity, made Maya lower her defenses. She closed her eyes, allowed herself to feel the wonder of the moment, the excitement of discovery that had drawn her to science in the first place. The gasp from Elias made her open her eyes. The sapling wasn't just glowing brighter, it was shifting color from blue to a warm violet. "I've never seen that response before," he whispered, moving closer until he stood just behind her. Maya could feel the warmth of him, his breath stirring the hair near her ear. "Whatever you're feeling, it's creating an entirely new reaction." Maya couldn't name what she was feeling. A complex blend of scientific amazement and something more personal, more frightening. When she finally turned to face him, they stood mere inches apart, surrounded by the gentle pulsing light of plants responding to the unspoken energy between them. "We should document this," she murmured, but made no move to step away. "Yes," Elias agreed, his gaze dropping briefly to her lips. "Every significant discovery deserves thorough documentation." When his hand rose to gently brush a strand of hair from her face, Maya felt a tremor run through her that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with chemistry of another kind entirely. Blooming truth. 3 weeks of intensive collaboration had transformed Maya's perception of Elias Novak. What she had mistaken for casual charm now revealed itself as genuine enthusiasm. What she had judged as scientific recklessness was actually brilliant intuition, balanced with meticulous documentation. Their late nights in the greenhouse had yielded breakthrough after breakthrough, each more promising than the last. Today, they stood before the research board, presenting their combined findings on what they now called the empathic botanical network, plants capable of responding to and communicating emotional states across species. The applications extend far, beyond academic interest, Maya explained, advancing to the next slide in their presentation. These plants could serve as natural indicators of environmental distress, revolutionizing conservation efforts for endangered ecosystems. Additionally, Elias continued seamlessly, preliminary tests show potential therapeutic applications. Patients suffering from emotional regulation disorders show marked improvement when interacting with these responsive plant networks. The board members exchanged impressed glances. Dr. Winters, the typically stoic head of the foundation that funded their research, actually smiled. This collaboration has produced extraordinary results. The funding committee will be very interested in expanding this project. After the meeting, exhilaration carried Maya and Elias to their favorite spot, a small Japanese garden on the facility grounds where they often discussed ideas away from the sterility of the lab. "We did it," Elias said, his smile radiant as he sat beside her on a stone bench overlooking a koi pond. "They're doubling our funding and giving us a dedicated team." Maya nodded, still processing the implications. "It's everything we hoped for. I have something for you." Elias reached into his bag and pulled out a small terrarium containing a miniature version of their experimental garden. A personal EBN, calibrated to your specific emotional signature. Maya accepted the gift, touched by the thoughtfulness. Inside the glass enclosure, tiny plants began to glow with a soft purple light in response to her touch. "It's beautiful." "They respond to truth," Elias said quietly. "When emotions are genuine, unfiltered by social constraints or professional boundaries." The intensity in his gaze made Maya's breath catch. Over these weeks of collaboration, something had been growing between them, as undeniable as the evidence in their research. "I should tell you something," she said, setting the terrarium carefully aside. "When I first met you, I thought your theories were absurd," he suggested, his lips quirking into that half-smile that had become so dear to her. "I was going to say premature," she corrected with a small laugh. "But I was wrong. And I'm not often wrong, and I know. It's one of the many things I admire about you." Elias shifted closer, the space between them charged with unspoken feelings. Your brilliance, your dedication, your unwillingness to accept easy answers. His hand found hers on the bench between them, fingers intertwining with a naturalness that belied their newness. "But there's something else you should know about my research," he continued, his voice dropping lower. "The plants don't just respond to emotions, they amplify what's already there." Maya felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by something more powerful than gravity. "And what's already there?" she whispered. Instead of answering with words, Elias closed the remaining distance between them. His lips met hers with gentle pressure that quickly deepened as Maya responded, her hands rising to frame his face. The kiss was both a question and an answer, tentative at first, then increasingly confident as they explored this new dimension of their connection. When they finally parted, Maya kept her eyes closed for a moment longer, savoring the sensation. When she opened them, she noticed the terrarium beside them was glowing brighter than before, its purple light pulsating rapidly. "Interesting data point," she murmured, a smile tugging at her lips. Elias laughed softly, his forehead resting against hers. "Should we document this discovery more thoroughly? For science, of course." "Of course," Maya agreed, pulling him closer once more. "Replication is a fundamental scientific principle, after all." As their lips met again, more urgently this time, Maya felt the careful walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. Here in this garden, surrounded by evidence of connections that transcended conventional understanding, she surrendered to a truth she could no longer deny. Some experiments changed not just scientific paradigms, but the scientists themselves. Storm and shelter dark clouds gathered over Westridge Research Center as Maya hurried through the facility's winding paths toward Greenhouse 3. The Weather Service had issued severe storm warnings, and their most sensitive specimens needed additional protection. Inside her jacket pocket, the small communication device Elias had given her pulsed with urgent purple light, signaling his distress. She found him securing the greenhouse's backup generators, his movements quick and precise despite the worry etched on his face. "The storm's changing direction," he said without preamble, showing her the meteorological data on his tablet. "It's headed straight for us, and it's intensifying. If we lose power for more than an hour, we could lose everything." Maya studied the forecast, a knot tightening in her stomach. Months of research, irreplaceable specimens, the breakthrough that had consumed their lives, all at risk. "We need to move the core specimens to the underground lab," she decided. "The rest we'll have to trust to the backup systems." They worked with urgent efficiency as the wind outside grew stronger, rattling the greenhouse panels. Together, they carefully transported their most critical plants to the secure sub-level facility, a windowless room designed for sensitive experiments requiring stable conditions. The last specimen, a particularly responsive orchid they'd nicknamed Oracle, was being carried by Elias when the first power surge hit. The lights flickered ominously and the elevator to the sub-level shuddered to a halt. "Stairs," Maya said, leading the way to the emergency exit. They had just reached the bottom when the facility's power failed completely. Emergency lights cast an eerie glow through the corridors as they made their way to the underground lab. Inside, battery-powered systems hummed reassuringly, maintaining the delicate environment their plants needed. Maya secured the door behind them, then leaned against it, exhaling slowly. "Looks like we'll be here for a while," Elias said, carefully placing Oracle in its designated spot. Above them, they could hear the muffled howl of the wind and the distant crash of falling debris. Hours passed as they monitored their specimens, occasionally checking the storm's progress on their devices. The plants seemed unusually active, their bioluminescence fluctuating in response to the atmospheric pressure changes, or perhaps, Maya thought, to the charged emotional energy in the room. "You're staring," she said, catching Elias watching her instead of the monitoring equipment. "I'm observing," he corrected with a small smile. "Different things respond differently under pressure. Some break, some reveal their true nature." Maya moved closer, drawn to the warmth of him in the cool underground room. "And what are your observations about me under pressure, Dr. Novak?" The teasing formality made him laugh softly. "That you're exactly who I thought you were from the beginning. Brilliant, committed, unshakable." His voice dropped lower as his hand found hers in the dim light. "Absolutely captivating." The intensity in his eyes sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the temperature. 3 months of working together, 3 weeks of cautious romantic exploration, and still, moments like this left her breathless. "The storm could last all night," she murmured, her free hand rising to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat accelerate beneath her palm. "Then we should make ourselves comfortable." Elias gestured toward the small rest area in the corner, where a couch meant for quick naps during long experiments waited. Later, Maya would remember how easily they had moved together, how naturally clothing had been shed, how the soft purple glow from their specimens had painted Elias's skin as he hovered above her on the narrow couch. The storm outside was matched by the one they created between them, each touch a lightning strike of sensation, each whispered word a roll of thunder. His hands mapped her body with the same care he showed their most delicate experiments, discovering what made her gasp, what made her arch against him, what made her whisper his name like a prayer. When they finally joined, the plants around them pulsed with light in rhythm with their movements, as if the entire room breathed with them. "Maya," he murmured against her neck, his voice strained with emotion and desire. "You feel..." Words failed him, but Maya understood. This connection transcended the physical. It was intellectual, emotional, perhaps even something their research had only begun to explain. As they moved together in the purple-tinged darkness, she surrendered completely to the feeling, her analytical mind finally quieted by the overwhelming truth of them together. Their release came simultaneously, a perfect synchronization that left them trembling and breathless. As they lay tangled together afterward, the storm still raging above, Maya traced patterns on Elias's chest and marveled at how dramatically her life had changed since he had walked into her laboratory with his wild theories and perfect smile. "The plants," he murmured sleepily, gesturing toward their specimens, which still glowed with unusual intensity. "They've never shown this response pattern before." Maya laughed softly against his shoulder. "Always the scientist, even now." His arms tightened around her. "Some discoveries change everything we thought we knew. Some experiments can never be repeated because they're singular events." She understood what he meant. Whatever storm had brought them together, professionally, personally, intimately, had transformed them both in ways that couldn't be measured or quantified. "Then we should document this thoroughly," she whispered, rising above him with newfound boldness, her hair falling around them like a curtain. "For posterity." His answering smile was all the hypothesis she needed to begin their research anew. Roots and wings. Spring arrived at Westridge with an explosion of color and activity. The success of the empathic botanical network had attracted international attention, bringing with it both recognition and complications. Maya stared out of her office window, watching researchers from 3 continents collaborate in the expanded greenhouse complex that had once been their private sanctuary. Dr. Chen? Her assistant's voice pulled her from her thoughts. The representatives from the Global Conservation Institute are ready for you in Conference Room A. Thank you, Layla. I'll be there in a moment. Maya gathered her presentation, materials, pausing to check the small terrarium on her desk. The plants inside glowed a steady, contented purple, a living mood ring that had become her constant companion. Their ability to reflect her emotional state had proven invaluable during the increasingly complex negotiations surrounding their discovery. The door opened again and Elias entered, his familiar presence immediately calming her. "Ready for the big pitch?" he asked, adjusting his rarely worn tie. Maya nodded. The GCI partnership could mean implementing our network in threatened rainforests across South America. It's exactly what we've been working toward. What remained unsaid hung between them. The GCI headquarters was in Brazil. If the partnership proceeded as planned, one of them would need to relocate to oversee implementation. Their professional triumph was creating a personal dilemma. Neither had been brave enough to address directly. The meeting went brilliantly. The GCI representatives were enthusiastic, the funding package generous, the implementation timeline ambitious. As the conference room emptied, Maya felt the conflicting emotions of accomplishment and apprehension. "They want an answer by next week," Elias said quietly, gathering his notes. "About which one of us will lead the field team." Maya nodded, unable to form a response that wouldn't betray the turmoil inside her. 6 months together, professionally, brilliant, personally transformative, and now they stood at a crossroads neither had anticipated. That evening they walked through the Japanese garden that had become their special place, cherry blossoms drifting around them like pink snow. "They offered it to me first," Elias finally said, breaking the weighted silence. "Because of my previous fieldwork experience." Maya had suspected as much. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the kind of project that defines a career. But nothing. She forced a smile. "You should take it. Your theories, your vision, you deserve to see them implemented on a global scale." Elias stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "That's not what I'm asking, Maya. I know what I should do professionally. I'm asking what we should do." The directness of his question caught her off guard. In the lab, they were seamless, partners anticipating each other's thoughts, completing each other's sentences. In their private moments, they moved together with the same intuitive harmony. But they had carefully avoided defining what existed between them, as if naming it might somehow diminish its magic. "I don't know," she admitted. "Long-distance relationships among researchers have a statistically poor success rate." "Always the scientist," he said with a small smile, echoing her words from the night of the storm. "But some phenomena defy statistical analysis." He reached into his pocket and withdrew something small that caught the fading sunlight. "A key. I've been offered a visiting professor position at the university here," he said, holding the key between them. "I could take it, maintain the research base while you lead the field implementation, or—" He hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. "This is the key to my family's cabin in the mountains outside Rio. It's where I go to think, to reconnect. It could be our place if you wanted to take the GCI position and I came with you." Maya stared at the key, understanding the magnitude of what he was offering. "You'd give up the field leadership position?" "I'd share it with the only person who truly understands what we've created." His eyes held hers steadily. "Maya, when we discovered that plants respond to emotional truths, I realized I needed to honor my own. I love our work, but I love you more." The declaration hung between them, as tangible as the key in his palm. Maya had spent her life prioritizing scientific advancement over personal connection, believing the two were somehow mutually exclusive. Elias had shown her otherwise, that passion could fuel both discovery and relationship, that vulnerability could be strength, that connection could transcend conventional understanding. I love you too, she said, the words feeling both monumental and utterly natural. But I don't want either of us to compromise our work. That's the beauty of what we've discovered, isn't it? Elias drew her closer, his free hand resting at her waist. Systems thrive through connection, not isolation. Networks strengthen their individual components. Maya considered the elegant simplicity of his solution. Co-leadership of the field project, a shared home in a new country, their research continuing to evolve as they did. A mutual symbiosis, she murmured, smiling as she took the key from his hand. Exactly. His answering smile held the same wonder she had first glimpsed in the glowing greenhouse months ago. Two separate organisms, stronger together than apart. As cherry blossoms continued to swirl around them, Maya reached up to cradle his face between her hands. The truth of them together was as evident as any scientific fact she had ever proven. A hypothesis confirmed through rigorous testing and undeniable results. Then let's rewrite the statistics, she whispered, rising on tiptoes to press her lips against his. Around them, the gardens of Westridge responded to their decision, flowers turning subtly toward them as if drawn by the emotional energy they generated. In the distance, even the practical research buildings seemed softer in the golden evening light, as if acknowledging that sometimes the most significant scientific breakthroughs weren't those written in journals or funded by institutions, but those that occurred within the scientists themselves. Maya and Elias walked hand in hand back toward the facility that had brought them together, their steps perfectly synchronized, their future unfurling before them like a newly discovered species, unique, precious, and full of possibilities waiting to be explored.